this morning.
Oh, no, thank you for having me, man. It's good to be here. It's nice and cold, but looking forward to this week.
Well, we were going to have you outside, but then we decided why not just put you inside so you can actually use words and answer the questions we ask you. Hey, can you believe that Super Bowl was 20 years ago? Is that the kind of game where you could probably remember every single detail of it, even though it was so long ago?
I wouldn't say every single detail. Remember, I had a migraine in that game in the first quarter. So some of the stuff is a little sketchy, but for the most part, I remember, obviously, the fourth quarter. I obviously remember walking off the field and hoisting that trophy. It was a great moment for us and all the fans in Denver because that was their first championship. So yeah, it was man, 20 years ago. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but you said 20 years. Yeah, that's quite a long time.
You mentioned the migraine. A quick story. I had a very good friend in college who was not a football fan at all, and I saw her closet one day, and there's a Terrell Davis jersey. And I asked her, I said, "Why, you're not from Denver, you're not a football fan?" She had dealt with migraines. She had been in a program or something that you were associated with and talked about going through that. I'd never had a migraine in my life, so I can't even conceptualize what that's like. Can you tell the audience what playing in a football game, dealing with that is, the difficulties it was? Because that's, I think, an underrated part of your amazing story, is almost like debilitating condition you dealt with.
Yeah, you said the word debilitating. That's exactly what it's like. Most people don't understand that a migraine headache is not just a headache. It's, I mean, it's a spectrum sort of disorder, and it affects you on a lot of levels. Number one, for me, my vision would go out every time I get a migraine, so I couldn't see anything for about an hour to about an hour and a half. And then once my vision came back, I would get this pounding headache. I would have nausea. I would vomit. And then I would have just, painful headaches for sometimes, days. And so it really is a tough condition to try to function. And the only thing you can do a lot of times is go into a cool, dark room. All your senses are heightened, whether it's smell, whether it's sight, hearing, everything is just heightened. And it's pretty intense, man, when you're trying to play in a game and everything, it just hurts. There's no way around it. And, but I've had them since I was 7 years old. I've played in actual high school games and college games and Pop Warner games with full-blown migraine headaches with no relief, nothing that can actually bring relief to me. So, when I got it as a pro, I kind of had some experience with it, so it made it a little easier. But they were always very difficult to deal with.
Well, TD, I mean, that's part of your story, to overcome great obstacles. And even through that, migraines high school, migraines in college, and going on to have a Hall of Fame career. They're now with the Gold Jacket. Can you kind of explain to the fans what it was like? Because we're going to put another class in on Saturday night. What was it like to get the call from the Hall?
Oh, Chris, it was, man, it's a feeling that is hard to explain, because here's the deal, because there's nothing like it out there. There's nothing that I can compare it to. So when I got the call or the knock on the door from David Baker, man, it was so many emotions that ran through my body. I was so excited, man. I had joy. There was a relief element to it. There was just a part of reflection where you're thinking about your entire life and how it culminates with this knock on the door. There's so many different elements to it that was kind of balled into one. But man, the bottom line was that it was just a fantastic experience to have. I can't tell you how much that this jacket I'm wearing right now means to me. I never thought that I would feel this way about this jacket or being in the Hall of Fame. I used to try to downplay it because you can't control it. And so when people would ask me about possibly being a Hall of Famer, I would say, you know what, man, it just wouldn't take away from my career if it never happened. But, man, what it means now that it's here, I could have never expected it to mean as much as it does at this point.
Two questions, Terrell. First of all, have you taken the jacket off since you've been there? Because I'm sure there's a number of great players walking around Minneapolis right now, and you got to stick out somehow. I would imagine the yellow jacket is one way to do that. And number two,
no, No, I'm as a person, I have not taken it off yet. No, go ahead.
That's good. I'm sure it smells amazing. Great dry cleaning for that kind of stuff. Too, I also want to ask you about the great running backs that we are watching right now. The guys like Leonard Fournette, Ezekiel Elliott, Kareem Hunt, Todd Gurley. Is there one in particular that you have an affinity towards, that you really enjoy, that you see maybe some of the things you did in their game? Who's been your favorite to watch in the last year or two?
I think as a running back, you have favorites. There's not like a favorite. A running back, to me, is like an artist, and so I appreciate the different types of play that they do, right, or they bring to the game, different abilities. Todd Gurley is a big, tall, long strider. Love his game. Loves Zeke Elliott's game. Like some of the young guys like Dalvin Cook, who got hurt this year. You like Leonard Fournette, Christian McCaffrey. So to me, I look at running backs, and I'm just a fan of a lot of running backs, because I know how tough it is to be a back, and the fact that they bring different qualities to the table, and they all look different, but they all are effective in one way or another. So I'm just a fan of watching these young guys run.
A lot of the guys we just mentioned there, Todd Gurley, Leonard Fournette, Ezekiel Elliott, those are not only first-round picks, but top of the first-round picks. You obviously were a sixth-round pick, I think 196th overall, but that's not that rare. It's rare to become a Hall of Famer, but it's not rare for the running back position for you to find a great player later in the draft. Kareem Hunt was later in the draft. Alvin Kamara was later in the draft. What is it about that position in particular that you think either, I don't know if people are misevaluating it in the draft or if it just translates better college to pro? Why do you think that position you can have such instant success even as a late round draft pick?
I think a lot of it is just because it's an instinctive position. When a guy is in college, sometimes he's not in the right system. Sometimes, he doesn't have blocking up front. Sometimes there's, maybe the quarterback is not as good as he probably could be. So those things sometimes affect the running back. And a lot of times you look at the back and you look at production, like numbers, and people say, all right, if you didn't rush for 1,000 yards in college, then maybe he's not going to be any good in the pros. And they kind of use that in the evaluation process. But, like me, I was kind of a guy that when I got to the pros, it was kind of the perfect situation for me. It was an offense that focused on running the football. When I was in college, we didn't do that. So I think different things sort of go into I think teams not finding that player who they need to take in the first round, and it's like you said, it's proven that backs are going to third, fourth, fifth, sometimes sixth round can be good for you. But I don't think teams necessarily go into the draft thinking we're going to find a guy like that in the later rounds. Sometimes it's just by chance, because otherwise they draft them in the first or second round if they thought that a fourth round pick would be as productive as a first rounder.
Hey, TD, one of your ex-teammates and now one of your teammates for eternity in the Hall, he's been known as a guy who likes to talk a little bit of trash. Myself, I like to call myself a person who likes to have a conversation with people on the field. But when you were up for the Hall, no one was more vocal about it and upset about you being not put in the Hall than Shannon Sharpe. Can you give us one of, because Shannon shows after our show, can you give us one of the best Shannon Sharpe trash talking stories, one that maybe he might not be too proud of?
Well, there's a lot of those, but I think there was one game we played the Chiefs in Kansas City, and at the time Derek Thomas and Shannon were going at it, and Shannon's pretty good at getting under your skin, man. That's what he was known for. We didn't like it because it made our job hard, because when he got the defense all upset, we had to run up against those guys. But in this particular game, it was one drive where we ended up basically going down the field because Shannon had Derek Thomas so frustrated that he committed like 2 personal foul penalties in a row, maybe 3, and he ended up getting kicked out of that game, which helped us win that game. So you're right, man. That dude can talk, and it's no surprise that he's on a talk show right now, and that's what he does for a living, because he was pretty good at it.
All right, I don't know how much you can reveal, but there's some legendary stories of that particular game. That game in particular, Shannon took the trash talking to a different level, correct? Can you at least confirm that part of the story?
Off the field?
Yes. That is confirmed. Normally, you stay within the lines. It went a little deep, so that's all I can tell you, man. It was a little personal.
Yeah, that's what we hear.
Yeah.
Hey, Tara,
Yes.
you are there in Minneapolis. I would imagine that the one question you get as you walk all around the city is, hey, who's going to win? So I guess I should ask you, between the Eagles and the Patriots, these are both two teams that were sort of headed this way to match up in the Super Bowl. Tell me a little bit about this matchup on Sunday.
Well, I mean, you know, everybody. You got the Patriots who are, been there, done that team. A team that is hard to game plan against because you look at them and you say, well, what are their strengths? What do they do well? Who do we have to take away on their offense? And some people might say Gronk, but if you take him away, there's other weapons that can beat you. So they're a team that can sort of morph and they can adapt to any situation. And we've seen it in the past. And then you have the Eagles, who they're new to the scene. Obviously, great defense up front. Fletcher Cox and Curry and Long, all those guys up front, they're formidable. Their back end is played well in conjunction with that front end. A good linebacker core. Obviously, on offense, they've got a quarterback in Nick Foles that, we saw him last game. Looked like he was basically, an all-pro. Can he take that performance that he had last week and bring that into this game? And that's kind of the question for their offense. It kind of evolves around Nick Foles and how he's going to play. I think right now my early sense is that I'm leaning towards the Patriots at this point, but that could change just kind of based on how I see the week unfold. But I mean, it should be a good game. It should be a close game. And really, this is the first time that I look at two teams and I say, well, you can make the argument for either team to win this game and feel real good about it.
All right, Terrell, you're here on behalf of Kay Jewelers. We actually got to talk to Orlando Pace yesterday. He was with Kay Jewelers. Chris Carter is wearing his Hall of Fame ring. I believe that is the Kay Jeweler partnership. Can you tell us a little bit more about Kay Jewelers and what you're doing with them?
Absolutely. I'm honored to be here with Kay Jewelers. They're the official jewelry store of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And, of course, you talked about this ring of excellence that's hard to take off, Chris. That thing. It's a beautiful thing. Look at that.
Man, you got two Super Bowl rings in one of them. It must be a nice ring.
You know what? But you know what? I wear this one more than I do those other two rings. I just those are on. They're in my house, but this one gets outside. We go with this one, man. So Kay Jewelers, man. Right now, obviously, Valentine's Day is coming in a few weeks, and so we're talking about winning Valentine's Day. If you want to win Valentine's Day, you got to go visit your local Kay Jewelers store or go to Kay.com, and that's how you get it done, man. It's a beautiful thing. I know you were talking about pendants earlier, Chris, and so you got to make sure you go visit Kay Jewelers, because I'm surprised that Kay didn't send you. Did they send you a pendant, man? Did they get you a pendant?
Yeah, I got a little situation though. I'll talk to the people at Kay. I'll talk to the people at Kay Jewelers. Yes, I need a pendant. Yes.
Hey, real quick, just before you go,
okay.
Was our friend Mark Schlereth?
I'll talk to my folks and I'll see what they can do for you.
Yes, sir.
Real quick before you go, 30
ahead.
seconds. Was Stink as gross as he makes himself out to be on the field?
Yes. Yes. I've
Think about
witnessed
it for a second.
Okay.
I've seen it. No, I'm not. I've seen it with my own two eyes. I've seen this man do some stuff in the huddle that I don't even want to share with you. That a grown man
good.
shouldn't do. A grown man shouldn't do.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us this morning. Enjoy it. Have a great time there this week, and definitely have fun at the game.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
TD, I'll see you tonight.
Thank you.
All right, buddy.
All right, coming up on First Things First, who is the next big name to be dealt in the NBA? We'll talk about that on the other side.
Get one, Nick.
Whoa.
Oh!
Yes,
Told you. I told you.
See, I put him
2
in the game.
feet down.
See,